So excited to be here today. I'm Carrie Hyde. I'm the host of Your Pet's Life Coach, and I'm going to be introducing you today to somebody that I've known for, well, I just found out 5 years. I thought it was maybe a little bit longer, only just because time has passed so much through COVID. But I am so excited to talk to you today about a story. We're going to share a story with you today. So before we get going, I want to introduce you to Nicole Erickson. She works for Small Batch, but I think she should be considered like the head honcho of all there is to know about Small Batch. So um,
Thank you.
you really do. Nicole is the face, I think, of the company. Most people know Nicole is the face of the company, but it's her knowledge that gets me so excited to talk to her because she's. I asked her before we started, and she said she's the outside salesperson, and I'm not to minimize outside salespeople, but I'm like, Nicole, you're a lot more than that. So, Nicole, how are you?
Fabulous. I am so excited to talk to you today and share a little bit about my story and,
Yeah.
get to
Yeah.
get some of my passions that have brought me into the pet industry to your listeners.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. The listeners know that I am a storyteller. I love stories. I thrive on them. I'm actually currently writing a book right now on stories that I've collected throughout the years of what I do. So stories is what drive me and the behind the stuff. So I pay close attention. And so they're always there. And so we're going to be sharing a story. But before Nicole can get into the backstory, I'm going to give you the story of why Nicole's on today. So I'm really excited. But sorry, this is my little kitty. Almost died last night. I got her back to health, so I'm excited. But so really quick though, we also do really like for you guys to be able to ask questions. So please feel free to type in any questions if you want. One of the things I love about our listeners is you guys help also. So if you feel like you know the answer before we can type it in or we can get to it, please feel free to help each other out because I think that's super important as a community that's growing together, that we're all here to help each other out. So go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to share why Nicole, not the only reason why Nicole is here, but particularly why she's here now is so cute. So you guys know I own a grooming shop in Orange County, California, and I have over the years seen many dogs from people in the industry. Just eventually they end up at my doorstep if they live locally. I'm fortunate enough to see them. And I know I probably shouldn't say this, and of course I'm not going to call anybody out,
Right.
but what has happened over the years is I've seen a lot of dogs come through my doors that the owners of the dogs are in the industry and they are preaching something, but then I see the dog and I don't really know if they're preaching and they're not really doing it themselves. So, and unfortunately that happened to me at the spa where I had a girl that was working with me many years ago, and she worked in the front and she used to tell people all the time that they should feed their dogs a species appropriate diet. And she had this little dog and he had these chronic ear infections. And so I was trying to work with her, but I was getting really frustrated because I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this dog shouldn't keep having these ear infections. He's on the greatest diet. We're doing everything right. But he kept getting the ear infections. Well, about a couple of years into it, her roommate fessed up to me that this particular person was feeding Del Taco almost on the daily. And so it became super frustrating to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, I can't force my employees to feed their dogs what I would like them to feed. But I certainly didn't expect one of them to be up there preaching to everybody to do it and then not do it on her own. And so that's what's leading us to this little story. So the other day I got a phone call from Nicole. Well, actually Chelsea did, one of the girls at work. And Nicole asking us if we could. Actually, she said she was looking for a referral because she thought we would never be able to do it.
But you're the hottest spot in town.
Yeah. Well, now any clients that are watching this, they're going to be mad because I went ahead and took her dog same day. I said, yeah, I'll go ahead. But to be fair, Nicole's dog is Mackie, you call him?
Mackie boy. Yes. Mr. Mac.
So, to be fair, he didn't need a haircut. So he wasn't like a full golden doodle that she asked me to take, and she didn't even ask. Anyway, so I took Mackie without Nicole knowing, and I don't do it on purpose. It's just a habit. Like, I look in their ears, I look in their mouth. I just kind of notice their weight, these kind of things. So I get Mackie up on the table, and I just want you guys to know how impressed I am with Nicole and this dog. Labs have a very hard time keeping weight off. So if they're eating carbohydrates, they're going to be fat. It's going to happen. And so Mackie's weight was just perfect. Teeth were amazing. Ears were amazing. Eyes were bright, like all these things. And so I just was like, oh my gosh, she's actually doing what she's telling people to do. Cause you can't hide it. You can't hide it. It would be embarrassing if somebody came and like flipped over my dog's ears and was like, whoa, what's going on in there?
Yeah.
So I called Nicole and I said, hey, I want to share your story. And I was just going to go on Saving Pets One Pet at a Time, which I'm an admin, and I was going to share the story of, hey, Nicole Erickson from Small Batch actually feeds her dog what she says she does. And then I thought, oh, let's put her on the show. And I found out so much more about Mackie's backstory. And so what we're going to do is share the backstory. I'm going to have Nicole share the backstory. And then we're going to talk a lot about some of the products, some of the ingredients that are in Small Batch that not everybody really realizes the benefits of. So we're not going to really be talking about the chicken and the beef and the pork and all of this. We're going to be talking about some of the cool stuff like the garlic and the what else is in there? I'm trying to think of the roots, the greens, all of that kind of stuff.
We got dandelion greens and collards and apple cider vinegar.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about all that cool stuff. But Nicole, share with us Mackie's backstory. Like, how did he get to looking this fabulous?
Yes. Oh, he is my handsome boy, love of my canine life.
Do you have a picture of him? I do, if I can put it up. But if you don't have one handy.
Oh, yes. You should share the one with the tie, because he is particularly debonair in that.
Did he like the tie?
Post bath. He wore it all day. Absolutely.
He did?
Proudly.
Oh you guys, he's so cool. He's so cool. So go ahead.
So Mac came into my ether just about 9.5 years ago now. At the time, I was pretty active in the San Diego-based group Lab Rescuers, and I was doing some of the medical folder collaboration collection, and I was fostering here and there. So Mac came to me as about 4.5-year-old dog who had actually been surrendered twice. First for a financial hardship from his original owner, and then second from his home that had taken him and had to unfortunately give him up to San Bernardino City Shelter. And that was where Lab Rescue came across him, and he found his way to my doorstep for what I thought was going to be a temporary stay.
The San Bernardino shelter is awful, guys. Like
it is.
This poor guy's been through so much at this point.
Yeah. Yes. San Bernardino City is one of 2 in Southern California that have the highest kill rates and are generally at well beyond capacity for their normal operating system.
Awful.
Yeah. So he had found his way there, was luckily pulled by the rescue group to have an opportunity for a family that fit his needs. And this very handsome yellow Labrador at that time was grossly overweight. At his veterinary intake, he was tipping 102 pounds, and the veterinary documentation had already indicated elbow dysplasia likely and arthritis in his front limbs. So he came to my door quite the plumper.
How old was he?
Just about 4.5.
About 4.5?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. And already overweight and already all these problems. Oh,
yes. God. Yes. Zero definition in his hind end for muscle tone or waist. He was, like you said, that typical kind of sausage body shaped Labrador. And I knew immediately, if this dog has any hope of not having these issues progress way more rapidly than they need to, it's got to start with us getting the weight off of his frame. That's going to be something that anybody who adopts him will need to be committed to. I am just the first step on his journey. So the mission was, how do I become, nutrition coach for the first few weeks of his life to get this kind of metabolism shaken up and try to shed a few of these pounds. I knew that he, at that point, was not going to be with me forever. So I switched him into a at least higher protein, simpler ingredient dry food and started immediately introducing a blend of fresh vegetables that I was making myself. It was primarily dark leafy greens and a few good herbs, a little bit of cilantro, some parsley, a little bit of garlic, um, to kind of just get those good enzymes into his digestive tract and start to decrease the amount of kibble that he was consuming daily. The little transition from that point was to introduce some cooked scrambled eggs into the bowl as an alternate protein source, kept up with the greens, gradually started introducing some freeze-dried complete diets into the bowl, again reducing the kibble more, upping the freeze-dried formula. um, then I started introducing one meal of his day as a raw food. At the time, I had already been recommending and selling Small Batch as one of the cleanest protein source brands that I had access to. So that was what I reached for immediately. I was using the base blends, which
So
are just that.
you weren't working for Small Batch at the time?
No, this was all before.
Oh, this is such an awesome story. I had
Yes.
no idea. Okay, so you're not
Yeah.
even working for Small Batch, but
No.
you grabbed for it.
Yep,
Okay. All right, keep going.
absolutely. Yeah. I was in the industry. So I came from the retail world where I had access to recommend a lot of different brands to the
Yeah.
customers that came in to see me. And time again, the proof was in the pudding for how clean Small Batch ingredients were and how they performed with the pets that I was able to recommend them to. So I had that,
Yeah.
solid experience to lean on. But I started Mac utilizing the base blends, which are the 2 pound bricks that are just a simple combination of muscle meat, organs, and bones. And then I was making my own veggie mix to go with it. But that combination kind of allowed me to find the sweet spot for the amount of fiber that he needed in his routine to kind of regulate his digestive system. And from there, we slowly started transitioning from one meal of the day to his entire diet. So
Wow.
at about the 6 week marker, he had lost about 4 pounds. We were moving south, but I got him into hydrotherapy to do some swimming. The
Where'd you
low
take
end.
it?
I was in San Diego at the time. It's actually
Um,
a gym that has since closed. It was the Total Dog in Oceanside. There's a couple great facilities down there, though.
yeah. We do have one here now in Orange County. I was just wondering, but
Yes.
it would have been before now that I think about it. Yeah, yeah. Because they
Yeah.
just opened a few years ago. But anyway, okay. So
Yep.
the hydrotherapy.
Yes. So he started swimming
Oh,
as
good.
his primary activity to burn some additional calories in the day, because I learned very quickly he had zero stamina. The poor guy could not even do a mile. And
Oh,
so, this combination of he's got zero muscle tone or endurance, I've got 20 plus excess pounds that we need to start to shed. And then we've got these known kind of inflammatory conditions going on in his joints. If he did any decent distance, he would be so sore and start limping the next day that it really made the program tricky to sustain. So I looked to the swim therapy program and the hydrotherapy tank, to get him moving, because we definitely know the ability to move the joints is a key component in helping stimulate joint fluid production and
right.
maintaining that existing mobility. So that was sort of the program early on. Over the course of about 3, 4 months, he continued to improve. Gradually, the pounds were sliding off of him. Potential adopters were a little bit deterred by
Yes.
the the degree to which I was asking them to be committed to his dietary and supplement routine. And So it became evident that he belonged with me. I was going to keep up all of his needs. So I made the decision for him to become an official family member.
Ah,
And
you're such
then
a sailor.
I know, I know. I love that foster fail title. It's my
Oh
favorite
yeah,
one.
I'm a loser. Like I feel
Yes.
you're whatever you want to call it. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
They call us the big winners,
It's
really.
hard when you take an animal. This is why Rita Hogan has Carl, if you followed Carl's story.
Hmm.
So, for those of you who followed Carl's, Rita Hogan has Carl because I took him in and I got him on a raw diet and I got him all healthy and fed him and did all this stuff. And then if I took him back to the animal shelter, they were just going to.
Yeah.
And so I found exactly what you're saying. It's really hard when you invest that much time into nutrition and then oh my God, all
Yeah.
my work is now they're going to eat kibble. So
Yeah.
I can completely understand. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
But it was
all right.
about 8 months, I think, from the time that we started our journey together to when one of his weigh-ins, he was in the 80-pound range. We continued then to, see steady improvements. And since then, he has maintained between 78 and 80 pounds, which gives you, I mean, a quarter of his body mass
Yeah.
almost was reduced by these dietary changes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I've introduced quite a handful of supplementary ingredients just to really help maintain the joint integrity and mobility over the course of his lifetime. So that was when he was 4.5 to 5 years old. And in August of this year, Max celebrated his 14th birthday. So he is now almost 14 and a half and still trucking along and doing fantastically, given the number of obstacles that we knew he had out of the gate. And so
Wow.
many of them, breed predispositions because
Yeah. Yeah.
Labradors are Labradors.
Labs just don't, for whatever reason, I don't think any dog should be eating these starchy, heavy carbohydrates, but I mean, I see labs just across, no matter what, if they do it, they're going to have these problems. And when
Yeah.
you talk about weight in a dog, sometimes people don't think, but like to give you an example, he was 20 pounds, you think overweight? Is that what it was? 20
Yeah.
pounds? Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like a human being 100 pounds overweight. Like it is
Hmm.
like the amount of weight that he was carrying on his knees and his joints. It's so sad to think that this poor animal who wouldn't choose that, like in the out world, if he was given a choice, he wouldn't have chose that food.
Right.
Keep a dog's joints healthy. So yeah, did Lily just ask like what herbs were you using and stuff for the joints?
Yeah. I love knowing how early in his life we were starting things. I really, really wanted to make sure that I was utilizing clean, minimally invasive ingredients. So looking towards herbs was priority number one. A few things that I have utilized across our journey. There is a fantastic joint health supplement by Animal Essentials that is a blend of alfalfa and yucca. Those are two great, simple ingredients that really do a lot to support joint fluid.
Yeah.
I've used a good quality bone broth regularly, almost across the entirety of his lifetime. That has such a myriad of benefits, which,
Yeah.
we could dive into later. Golden paste has been an ongoing component of his formula. And then I do an additional omega-3 supplementation a few days of the week to really help manage any inflammatory balance needs.
Yeah.
Those were kind of the key components that
You
we've
know,
stuck with consistently.
the golden retriever, not the lab. I'm not sure. I'd have to look up the lab, but the golden retriever just got their lifespan reduced down to 9 years old.
Mm.
Officially, they've said that the golden's average lifespan is 9. So if you compare that to a lab and you think, here's this dog who had a really rough start, and really the best chance our animals have is to have the best start, right? Like start from the get-go puppies, getting these puppies,
Yeah.
because it's really hard to fix it. So God, when I look at Mackie, I think he did not have the best start. He had one of the
Yep.
worst starts. I mean, just the stress alone for being taken back twice to shelters and being in that shelter of all
Yeah.
shelters to be in. I've been to the San Bernardino Animal Shelter. It is horrific. And I don't know how long he was there, but to think that he is now 14 years old, there's no way he would have made it to 14 had he not taken. I don't want to say necessarily you, but somebody that was going to
Right.
invest in changing this dog's diet. Because for him, most of the time when I see labs and dogs that are it's usually not that bad until they hit around 5 or 6. So for him to already be 4 and having the arthritis at 4 years old, we don't usually see arthritis in dogs
Yeah.
setting in until they're like in their 7, 6, 7, 8, and then on. But at 4, you just have to think, God, this dog's, and for you to get him to be 14 years old, I don't know if you guys realize that, but this is huge, like
Yeah.
huge. So I'm so excited to talk about his story and have Nicole be able to share some of the things she did. Lily says, I just recently read that turmeric is high in oxalate. So if you have small oxalate cysts, would that be a concern? Do you think?
Mm. Lily, I would definitely want you to consult your veterinarian. I would not be inclined to think so, but the amount and regularity that you were dosing it may be the variable. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if you've
I
got a
think
good,
I'll give you guys a little, and you can take this with a grain of salt. You can run with it, whatever you want to do with it. But I used to take turmeric supplements a lot for inflammation. I'm a dog groomer, so God knows I'm inflamed all the time. And I am so glad that Mackie has lost weight, but he still was really heavy. I had to lift him up on the table and stuff.
yeah,
So I used to take turmeric capsules in a supplement form. And, we're all here about how they have good inflammatory, anti-inflammatory and all of this kind of stuff. So I took it for years and I never really had I didn't think one way or another. I just automatically took them. Anyway, I switched for other reasons into juicing it myself and taking shots. And what I can tell you is that within 2 weeks, my inflammation was like gone. And the only reason I'm saying that is because I really want there to be some more studies on the differences between taking it in supplement form and taking it in its whole food form. Because
yes,
so I wonder that, Lily, when they talk about, what was the test done when they say it's high in oxalate? Was it done on supplements? Was it done on whole food? That would be an important thing, I think, for you to look at. Before and then also keep in mind too, Lily, I say this, I'm sure Nicole does too, probably. There's other ways to get anti-inflammatories. So if you can't do turmeric, don't panic. There's a million other types of things that, like Nicole's going to share with us, that we can do for anti-inflammatory. So we don't have to give turmeric. So if you're
right.
nervous about something, don't do it, and then we'll find something else that might work better. So, but let's talk a little bit about that. What do you think about inflammatory foods? Like what kind of things do you see a lot in? I know what did you have to eliminate from his diet other
Oof.
than kibble? But what were you more like, okay, definitely cannot have this?
Yeah. I mean, anything that was high starch inclusion or high glycemic on the index or glycemic index as far as vegetable matter. I think that those starchy ingredients in any vegetable, even a lot of the ones that we're finding in fresh food formulas now, I look at some of the ingredient list and it's still got peas, it's still got potatoes. Not ideal for the digestive system, period, but really the way that they metabolize and the propensity for weight gain as a result, I think, is just an unnecessary kind of byproduct from
Yeah,
them.
it's
So I was
interesting.
really looking to maximize the clean, neutral, and cooling food energetic proteins for him, and then keep it really, really simple in his vegetable mix.
Yeah. I was going to say it's interesting that you brought up we just did a podcast or whatever these are called now. I think we've all gotten away from what an actual podcast is. Now we just call everything a podcast.
Yeah.
But I did a podcast not too long ago called it's not better than kibble, because I'm really getting frustrated with these foods, like you're saying, that are these whole fresh foods. I just had a client today, and she, I had to explain a little couple. Sorry, my cat just knocked over my light thing here, so that was fun. Hold on one second. That's what happens when you have kitties, and I've got lots of them. Hold on. So sorry, guys. Tim, can you help me by chance?
Yeah, it's set up on already.
I know, but because the kitties just knocked it over. You got it? Thanks. Sorry. But when we're talking about that, and she brought in me 2 dogs, and they're both chronic ear infections. And she's like, I've already changed their diet. I put them on this. And then she says, I put them on this one diet. They deliver it to my house. As soon as she said that, I was like, oh, let me tell you why that's your problem. So it's just interesting that you bring it out too, that we see these whole fresh food diets that are being delivered to our homes, and we're buying into it. So I just did a whole podcast on it. And it's not better than kibble, because that's what's happening in our industry is we're getting a lot of people that are saying, well, it's better than kibble. And it's not. I just don't think that it is. Like, just because I can see it doesn't make it better. Is heroin better than crack? Because it's, no.
Yeah.
So
we really
anyway.
sort of become unaware of the hairs that we're slicing. And as a member of the fresh food space now on the manufacturing side, it's endlessly frustrating to hear the argument, well, all raw food is good and fresh food is better, period, than processed ingredients. And the answer is no. You can make a fresh food with the bottom of the barrel and the most inappropriate or, species unnecessary ingredients possible. And just because it's found in the refrigerator or the freezer, we think that we are doing better. And unfortunately, it's not the case.
No, it's a good point, because a lot of it is, we've seen a lot. Walmart has a freezer now packed with food in it for your animals, and it's a marketing thing. It's not. You have to understand nutrition to understand why that's not necessarily make it any better. It's kind of like, I always say, it's kind of like back when McDonald's started making salads, right? And so they're like, okay, oh man, what are we going to do? Like, all these people want to get healthy, right? And so they wanted to be in that space too. So they started making these salads and tried to convince people. So then people were like, well, I go to McDonald's and I get a salad, so it's somehow better. But then when you really pick it apart, you start looking at like iceberg lettuce
lettuce dusted with cornstarch to keep the leaves all
to keep the leaves fresh, right? So you start looking at it and you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't it. So we do really have to be careful. Lily wants to know if you remember the name of the joint supplement with the yucca.
It's a combination of yucca root and alfalfa. It is made by Animal Essentials. I think that the new name of it is just Joint Support. But I love Animal Essentials. Their website is fantastic to navigate by need or product type. So if you go on there and type Joint Support, it should be one of the first ones that you see.
Yeah, I'm going to look into it. I'm actually working on, the Spaw's going to start delivering stuff as well. And that's how we're doing it. We're trying to break it down into what your dog's problem is. Because sometimes people don't really understand what they need. They just know that my dog's limping. So they don't know what to go look for. So I'm glad to hear Animal Essentials doing that. They do. I love them as well. I complete support of them. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit. So for those of you guys who don't know, I'm just going to make this simple. Small Batch is very clean meat. They do amazing job with sourcing. But Nicole and I thought we would take this time to kind of break it down, some of the cool ingredients that are in Small Batch that not a lot of people talk about, because we talk about how it doesn't have the starchy carbohydrates in it, and we talk about the proteins, and we talk about the sourcing, but very little, like, has anyone ever really talked about the little cool stuff that's in there. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start you off with the big one that people are always shocked at my store when they come in and they flip over the bag. This is the one I probably get the most comments about. Oh my God, this has garlic in it.
Yes. Yep.
And I'm over here going, oh my God, this has garlic in it. So why is there so much of a disconnect and a battle? And let's talk a little bit about garlic.
Yeah. First of all, in the entirety of the complete and balanced formulas that Small Batch produces, it is only 12% of the recipe that is any amount of vegetable or the supplemental herbs that we add. So it's a tiny percentage, really. We want to keep it protein, meat centric for the majority of the nutrients that we're delivering. But garlic in particular is a fantastic immune supporting benefit ingredient. We use about 2 pounds of peeled, fresh, raw garlic in the recipe. In addition to the immune benefits, it's got fantastic utilizations for being a natural antiparasitic. It is a natural pest deterrent. So when you've got those little buggies, making your animal a less enticing host is the place to start from the ground up.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. As somebody who is constantly, I'm going to share a little story about a cat yesterday. I had a cat come in who just came in for a bath and to get the nails done and for us to look at checking for fleas and stuff. First time pet owner, not really sure what's going on, but her cat has this upper respiratory and like constantly sneezing. So she takes her to the vet. The vet can't figure out what it is. So now the cat is now on Benadryl every day of this kitty's life. So I, of course, start breaking it down little by little by little. And of course, we find out that you're going to love this, everybody. This poor cat owner, this cat started with the symptoms just 2 months ago. Guess what else started 2 months ago? Flea and tick medication. So she started the flea and tick medication, and then she's starting to get this upper respiratory. So of course I'm talking to her about garlic. So I can tell you guys that I give my own animals Small Batch. I love that it has the garlic in it because I'm not one to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. So it's really great for me to know that so long as I have the patties, then I'm giving garlic every day, because that is one thing about garlic, right? It can't be given like once a month. It's not a once a month thing, and it's an everyday thing. And so it makes it really simple for me to get that garlic in there. I love it. I think it works. Absolutely. And I have a lot of animals. This is number two of my pack. So yeah, garlic. Did you, Dr. Karen Becker put out something not too long ago talking about why that argument came about with the garlic, that it was a study that was done a very long time ago, and they used a certain amount of dogs in this study, but they gave them like massive amounts of garlic, and one dog, I guess, got a little bit sick, and so they just said garlic is bad, but didn't really have any research. So it's pretty interesting. But I love that you guys put it in there. So let's talk about some other cool stuff. So the other one that I think is really cool that gets talked a lot about is the dandelion greens, which I try to eat every single day. But tell us a little bit about why you guys decided to put that in there.
Yeah. So some of our recipes do include dandelion greens. It is one of the best herbs to support natural liver detox, and especially for animals that suffer from any sort of seasonal flare-ups. Cleansing the liver and allowing the body to do a much better job of filtering and handling kind of, the little histamine bumps naturally is such an easy place to start. The filtering organs have to be able to function at their peak in order to manage all of the rest of the body operations. So a easy utilization is the whole plant source, and dandelion greens do a fantastic job of that.
Yeah, I get mine. I juice them, but I'll give my dogs straight dandelion when I have it. But I know it's in Small Batch, so it makes it really simple for me. But I do dandelion myself, and you can get the whole thing over at like Whole Foods or most of the stores are selling them now, and I just juice them. And they're not bad, but I will say of all of the, and this, I'm sorry, this is probably a huge distraction.
An adorable one.
It's not planned, but I can't help it. If I put them away, they cry at me the whole time. So what choice do I have? I will say this about dandelion. Of all of the greens that I juice and put in my drinks, dandelion has the most earthy taste.
Yeah.
Like I can't hide I can hide spinach very easily. I can put spinach in my juice and it just tastes like apples. But if I put dandelion in, I can't hide it from people who don't want it. Like it's a very earthy, but that's probably a good thing, right?
Yeah.
That it tastes more earthy. So what do you think is the coolest thing in there? Like what do you like super, like what's your favorite cool thing?
Oh gosh. It's hard to pick a favorite because the power of plants and vegetables is so diverse.
I know.
It, for me, starts with utilizing those whole food sources and not isolated supplementals. The idea that food works in harmony, I think, is the foundation of how the small batch recipe gets put together. Anytime you start separating the components of something that is naturally a synergistic system, we kind of start to dilute the efficacy. So keeping those whole food ingredients as the components of the small batch, not only to deliver the nutrients, but for their functional benefits is, like I said, kind of the foundation. A couple of things that I love in our formulas, aside from what we talked about, apple cider vinegar.
Ooh,
Is
yeah,
such a great, a little bit of fermentation naturally. It's got fantastic natural living enzymes, good to sort of stimulate the probiotic recolonization in the digestive tract. And it's nice for people that aren't adding ingredients like that on their own. Like you said, to find it in the food on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
That's another favorite. We use things like bilberry and cranberry in our formula. That little bit of antioxidant boost is an ideal inclusion.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what you're saying. Like there's so like it is hard to pick out one because right after you said apple cider vinegar, and I'm all, oh no, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
No, that's my favorite. I deal with a lot of dogs that have yeast issues, and I think I've become, this is kind of a weird thing to say, but I think I've become the yeasty girl. Like take it to that girl. She knows all about yeast. That's me. And so I do really love apple cider vinegar for that purpose, because it is hard, when I talk to people and I'm asking them to switch from going from a kibble onto a raw, and then while you're doing the raw, I want you to add in some garlic and some apple cider vinegar, right? It just starts to feed on itself. And small batch has always kind of been that for me, where I can be like, okay, how about if we just do this? And then you don't have to do any of that other stuff. Sometimes I'll ask them, as you get more comfortable, let's add a little bit more. Cause like you said, it's only 12% of the food. So it's not a huge amount. And sometimes I need to increase apple cider vinegar, but you're right. Apple cider vinegar is another super yay. I'm so glad it's in there. That's what I love about small batches. It's weird because sometimes I need to look at a food who has a very simple, like there's not very much in it at all because I'm dealing with what might be allergies and I'm trying to work towards that. And it makes the people comfortable, the customers, the pet parents comfortable. But in general, I love small batches variation. I love how much stuff is in it and what it provides. So,
and like I mentioned, the vegetable matter is slightly variable from recipe to recipe because the nutrients that you're going to find in chicken are different than they will occur naturally in beef, than they will occur naturally in duck. So it's a nice way for pet parents to get that whole variety if they really are feeding the rainbow, as we suggest, the best your pet can handle. You're not just getting that animal protein variability and the amino acids that would provide, but the vegetable variations as well.
Yeah, I do. People know this about me. I'm pretty sure I do veggie days for my dogs where that's all they're getting. Like I will just do like, I'm kind of lazy this way where I will just do like green juju, a lot of greens and that kind of thing. So I love being able to do that. What does this say? Do you use carbo? Do you use that? Grew up with it also, not chocolate.
Oh,
That is?
carob.
Oh, carob, sorry.
Yeah. No, Crystal, we do not include carob in anything that we produce at all.
Yeah.
I have not, I've seen it used as like a a coating, a dip, like frosting alternative in pet products for something that is not a chocolate, but resemblant of. Um, I'm not familiar with other applications for that particular ingredient, but I know for certain it is not utilized by small batch in anything that we produce.
Yeah, I'd have to look into it, especially since I don't know. I think I have carbohydrates on my mind all the time. And when I read it, that's why I said carbo. I'm like, and a little dyslexic. So there you go. But speaking of apple cider vinegar, what is a safe way for removing warts from dogs? Is that, I'm not aware of using apple cider vinegar to remove warts. But maybe.
Hmm, I would guess maybe if you're thinking of it just from an immune support angle. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily think it to be particularly efficacious as a topical application. I think there's better things to utilize that way, but absolutely to support the immune system to keep that wart virus at bay. Apple cider vinegar would be a great choice. Would I point to it as a solution supplement? I'm not positive, but I don't think that it would have any negative implications if you're looking to use it for that function.
Yeah, yeah. How about this? I can't wait to hear the answer to this. Do you have a food for IBD dogs?
Ooh,
That's
we've got a
interesting.
handful of ideal options. I would actually look to start an IBD dog on one of our lightly cooked formulas. The lightly cooked turkey dog complete and balanced recipe is one of the most successful that I have found for regular use. It is a nice, really lean protein formula, super easy on the digestive tract. The vegetable in it makes it so that it calms down digestive tracts quickly. And people with chronic IBD issues really see sustained management of their condition and not just sort of temporary suppressions. That would be one that I would look at first for sure. There's definitely things that you can supplement in addition to, but if you were looking for one recipe, I would look at the small batch lightly cooked turkey number one. Potentially chicken as a number two, depending on your dog's food sensitivities.
Yeah, I definitely, when people come into me with dogs that are having IBD, always go straight to the lightly cooked. But can you, this is something that gets brought up a lot for me at work about the bone. So people are starting to learn, which is fabulous. And I feel like we're doing a really good job in the industry getting more education out. And now that we are all doing these live shows, I think it's helping too. But what's happening now, I have people coming into me and they're very concerned about the bone in the lightly cooked. So can you explain why it's fine?
Yeah, absolutely. So the concern with cooked bone is that the bone itself becomes dried and then brittle. So the first step in small batch safety is the grind size. It's a really fine grind. We're getting those pieces super, super itty bitty. The cook method of our food is a sous vide process. So it's actually sealed and everything is cooked in its own juices. We don't have steam escaping. The ingredients themselves are not leaching or losing any amount of the naturally occurring moisture from the meat or vegetable. We keep tons and tons of that saturation for all of the ingredients, bone included. But it's really that combination of the grind size, keeping all of the moisture in it that are piece one and two. But beyond that, the time and temperature of how you are treating bones is the factor. Our sous vide comes up to 150 degrees. It's held there for 5 minutes. It's the shortest time duration and lowest temperature that we can utilize that still meets the FDA threshold for pathogen mitigation for poultry formulas, which is nice for the people that really are looking for a safety insurance in the cook process. But that low, slow temperature is that third kind of safety step. So it is in a really, really safe format.
I'm glad you brought that up because I know it's sous vide and I know a lot about the product, but I hadn't. And I knew like the temperature isn't going to be that super over the top, but I'm glad you pointed out how fine it is because that is one part that I missed when I'm explaining to people that this is okay to do. And so I'm glad I now know it's like that little tiny, I just kind of flew over that myself. Crystal says my dogs have been, where is it? She says her IBD dog has been on lightly cooked food a little over a year. It works, but wanted to change it up a little bit. What would you say about that? Because I have something I kind of want to comment on that.
I guess the first question would be, when you say change it up, are you looking for form of food that you want to change up, or by variability of protein? Certainly as much variety as we can deliver, even if we've got kind of a system that's working, is most ideal. So I guess I would need a little bit more clarification as to the reason why and in what capacity you're looking for options.
Okay. While we wait for Crystal to answer that, let's look at, and then we'll move on to Joyce. But Crystal also says that her dogs have been wanting to snack on fish lately, and they're going absolutely crazy. This brings up a really, really fun, interesting thing about animals. But I'm going to let Nicole go ahead. And what do you think about that? Dogs going crazy about fish.
Super smelly. The smellier, the better. Mine love to roll on a dried minnow from time to time.
Oh, isn't that the best part? So these little 6-week-old kittens I have right now, I started giving them little minnows. And one of them, actually, she's on my lap right now. This is little Pearl. And she will get one of those little minnows. And I mean, she is like a wild animal over this little minnow. So what I always say when you start seeing an animal get like this is there's probably something in there that they need. And fish tends to have a lot of vitamin D in it. It tends to have a lot of omegas. And so sometimes when animals start to gravitate that, and what's really weird, Crystal, watch what happens after they do it for a while, and then they suddenly don't want it anymore. Like I've seen that even happen with food where like my cat my cats love small batch, by the way, particularly one of my cats. But she will go crazy over like the rabbit. And then she'll do that for a couple weeks. And then she doesn't want the rabbit anymore. She wants something else. And I really do believe that they're getting something that they need out of it. And then when they no longer need it, they move on. We like to say it's because they're bored and they don't like it anymore, because we get like that because we eat for our emotions.
Yeah.
Right? But animals eat for health and survival. And so what they're smelling and what they're needing. So, which is why I think it's such a great idea. We talk about doing these rotations and having different formulas in these things, because our animals definitely know what they need. So
yeah, giving them access to the variability.
Sorry, Crystal.
Giving them access to the variability of options, that self-selection is really innate, and they will go for things that their body needs, exactly like you said. It's interesting sometimes to hear people say, well, my dog loves whatever they're eating. And I'm always wondering, have you offered them other things? Do they have choices, or are they just eating what they've got exposure to?
Well, I think part of that is the psychology that has been used on us through marketing for so many years, that your dog should only eat one, don't change his food because he'll get diarrhea, and don't do this, don't do that. And so we've ruined their guts to the point where we're afraid to change their diet. And so, and to be fair, that is what happens, right? When you have an animal that my dogs don't eat the same thing every day, ever. They just don't, and they never get diarrhea. I just don't have those issues because they have healthy guts, which brings me back to when we were talking about IBD. to me, an animal shouldn't have IBD for the rest of their life. So if you're feeding your animal for a whole year and now they're still having IBD problems, like they're doing okay on it, then there's something more that I think you should address other than just diet. So that's just a little side note on that. But let's look at what Joyce says. Joyce says, I have a 13-year-old chronic pancreatitis. Oh, this is a good one. This is going to be great, Nicole. This is pancreatic dog whose allergies keep us on rabbit. I've been using small batch for a couple of years now. Sorry, I lost it. I got to find it again. I have been using small batch for a couple of years now. I'm lightly cooking your rabbit sliders with bone broth for a couple minutes. It's best if I can. It's the best I can do. Your thoughts?
I think that that's a fantastic program if it's working for you. We like to say that we deliver tools for people to be able to utilize according to their pet's best needs. And giving just a touch of cook to the formulas happens a lot in the landscape. If you can do that with a little bit of warm or barely above warm temperature broth, I think that that's a great protocol.
So when we talk about, because I've had people ask me this, like if they were to get your rabbit, slider and cook it, do you think that there is a point where you're going to cook it too much and it would affect the bone? Or do you, because in case they mess up, like it's really hard to know exactly what temperature unless you know how to sous vide. So let's just say, for the sake of, okay, I accidentally messed up and I totally overcooked this. Is there a point where we shouldn't be giving it to the dogs because it has that bone in there? Or is the bone that small that it really won't matter?
The bone grind is that small that from a size of the bone piece concern, it really should not be something that you are worried about. Consider, of course, the size of your dog, the cook method that you're using, the time and temperature that you are leaving things on the stove. There's so many variables, it becomes a little tricky for us to give specific directives. So low and slow, as short of duration as possible. You know your pet best. Err towards the side of less is more always when you're doing something like that. And we should generally be on the safe side.
Wow, vet told me she was going to be on steroid the rest of her life. That was not an option for me. She's been steroid free for 15 months. That's good. That's good. Rest of her life. I can't. That's just awful. That's awful.
Those kinds of lifelong sentences that get delivered sort of haphazardly as this is the plight of your condition and this is the only remedy. It puts a lot of pet parents, I think, in a tough spot because you certainly want to take care of the animal in front of you, and being given the option to explore different modalities and not just steroids as the one and only consideration, I wish happened more frequently.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just telling someone today that I think that a lot of times vets who have a smaller toolbox, as we like they just don't have very many tools. And because they don't have the tools, they give you this as the only solution because they don't have any other tools. So all they can do, if all she has is steroids, then she's going to say, then you have to do steroids the rest of your life because she doesn't have any other tools to fix it. So that's why it becomes so important for us, right, as pet parents to say, I'm going to seek out and look toward causes and fix the problem. So yeah, to think steroids the rest of your life, that's just awful. That's scary.
Yes. Bravo to you for being willing to explore those alternatives and having such success with it.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So I want to point this out as a crazy cat. Well, Jesus, I have all 4 of them on my lap right now. I thought I had 2 and I somehow ended up with 4. You guys have a new cat stuff coming out. Please tell. I'm so excited.
We do. Oh, first of all, I have to back up a tiny hair in the small batch story just to share with anybody that doesn't know. We love our cat clients at Small Batch, and the original Small Batch food was actually made for Blue, who is the OG Small Batch cat. Really? He still lives with David and Diana today. You'll see Blue featured on our Instagram from time to time. He is a gorgeous guy that is the same age as the company. So we started as a cat food company, practically.
Wow.
And
no idea.
our chicken cat sliders, the complete and balanced formula that we produce, is the best-selling product that we make, which is wild. But we love our cat clients, and we are finally kind of bridging the space between the freezers and a new sort of convenient opportunity, and getting a freeze-dried cat meal bites that is a complete and balanced formula out into the landscape. So we are taking the recipe that people love from the frozen slider version. We are making it in nice little bite-sized pieces in a shelf-stable, convenient package, which makes it ideal to utilize by itself. Easy to sprinkle in the bowl, add whatever moisture you want, goat milk, bone broth, a little bit of warm water to rehydrate. It is also super ideal to get a little bit of fresh, clean protein into any sort of alternative food bowl. If you have a cat that is eating canned or even kibble, and you're looking to up the nutritional value of their bowl, or even offer a little bit of protein variety or textural difference, it is super utilizable for that myriad of options.
So I'm unbelievably excited about it. For those of you who don't know, I own a cat hotel also, and far more dogs are eating fresh whole foods than cats are, which is really unfortunate given the fact that our cats are carnivores, and they really do so well on eating they both, dogs and cats, do, but it's really sad to see our kitties kind of being forgotten and still eating kibble, and it's awful. I don't know how many clients I have, and it's not them, it's not their fault. It's just the education isn't catching up to our kitties.
Right.
And we just don't have that much variety. You don't walk into a cat place and just see nothing but raw diets and stuff. So why I'm so excited about this is because it is really hard to go into, you have that habit, right, of just pouring kibble and letting your kitties just graze, because a lot of cats will graze. Okay, they'll eat a little, not dogs, not as many as dogs, but cats will. So this is going to be so helpful because I can get people to, it's easy now, just pour this into the bowl instead of that. Yep. And so I think it's gonna really be so valuable to the cat world, and it's going to be the first step, because I remember the first step in dogs was this kibble's better than this kibble. So that was the first step in dogs. This kibble's better than this kibble. And then it slowly little by little until now all kibble's bad as far as I'm concerned. But to watch this be able to happen for kitties, I feel like it's going to be the first step of us really kind of pushing down so our cats can start eating better, because it's awful to watch. It's really awful. So,
absolutely. Having an option in the landscape with the palatability of small batch in a package that makes it even more accessible to cat homes, I think is so huge.
I need you to do dogs. I need you to get on it. I need get to work, Nicole. I need a complete and balanced in a bag. And there's so many. For me, it's just that mindset to get people to change. And so for me, I need a complete and balanced that can be poured, because once they see that, then they can, graduate up into the freezer, which is where I like you to be. But I have a question before I'm going to answer some more of your questions. I just want to pick Nicole's brain a little bit. What about giving dog food to cats and cat food to dogs? How do you
I say it depends solely on what food we are talking about. By meat percentage is going to be the first thing to consider. Quality of that protein, combination of ingredients for whatever organ inclusions we may be utilizing. You can definitely give a cat formula to dogs more regularly. The difference is going to be that it has less fiber. So knowing your dog and how much fibrous matter they need for digestive regularity would be the thing to consider. I actually have quite a few customers who buy the small batch cat sliders and feed them to their very sensitive or allergy prone dogs because it is 97% meat, bone, and organ. They can add 1 or 2 fibrous ingredients to kind of boost that, like I said, digestive regularity for their dog, and they're pretty good to go. Our lightly cooked formulas are surprisingly popular with the feline community.
Yeah.
And we have some veterinarians that recommend them readily after having tested the nutrient profile. So it's easier to share between species when you've got super premium protein sources.
Right.
That said, going from dog food to your cat's bowl regularly, you really want to make sure that you're delivering a variety so that, most importantly, they're getting adequate amounts of taurine. Cats have a little bit more specific need in that regard. So making
Right.
sure that you're looking at what it is you're using and continuing to offer variety for the feline side.
So Nicole suggested this to me a while back, because I have so many animals to feed. She was being very helpful and told me, if you bought the bulk cat and because I add a lot of veggies and then I just would add veggies to it. It was actually less expensive for me to buy the bulk cat and then add my own veggies than it was for me to buy the bulk dog, which I was still adding veggies to the dog because I really do like a lot of veggies. My dogs do very well with a high fiber diet. That's the best. And I have a pretty old dogs at this point. So, but that was a little trick Nicole told me. I really appreciate it to this day. I'm like, oh God, because sometimes I get, this will never happen, but sometimes I get, oh my God, this is costing me a fortune. That's it. You're all going on kibble.
Yep.
That's it. I never have. I never will. But I also threaten to take my little one to the pound every time he does something bad too. So, and I always tell him, that's it. I'm taking you to the pound. And then the girls at work always go, oh, that again? Yeah, right. So, within the species, I would think breeds would matter sometimes. What do you think about the breed specifics?
I do think that there is something to that. If you are a fan of a particular breed that has sensitivities, go from there.
Yeah. I agree. Like, I know there's a lot of those kibble companies that will say, like, this is the Shih Tzu food, and this is the that food, and this is the that, and it's every breed, and it's the Bichon and stuff. And I've flipped those bags all over. I don't know if anybody's done it. Have some fun in PetSmart every once in a while. And I flip bags over and I read, and they were all the same.
And they're all the same. Yeah.
It's like, there's really nothing different in any of these. Sometimes it would say like, chicken and rice, and then it would say like pork and rice, and so maybe the protein might be changed a little bit, but what I always say is it's really more about your own individual pet's activity level, like, right? So sure, if you have a French bulldog who's zipping around the house like crazy, and then you have an English bulldog who's not got off the couch in days, that can't eat the same amount. So it's sort of breed. Certain breeds are prone to things like pancreatitis. What do you think of that?
I think that it is truly less breed specific and more to do with the breeding practices that we have sort of created these chronic conditions in. I suppose there's a small amount of that to be true. Do I ever think that we can blanket statement breeds with disease or chronic condition rooted issues? No, I don't like to say it is all or nothing. I think it is very specific animal to animal, not only where they've come from, what their genetic history is up a few layers in the tree, and then what it is they are doing for lifestyle and health management on the regular.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the reason why we think it's breed specific is exactly what you just said, is that generationally. So if we keep breeding these dogs, then we end up, so it's not necessarily because it's a golden doodle. It's because the golden doodles that they're breeding don't have good gut bacteria. Like they've destroyed that. So then it ends
Right.
up becoming, it used to be, I remember back in my day, everybody would say, back in my day, like I'm dead, like I'm out, right? Like back in my day, back when I was working at the vet hospital, we used to say, and people would say that, oh, you don't want to get a purebred because they're the sickest. You can't, they have all the
Right.
problems. And I certainly don't think that's the case now, or probably was then. But certainly now it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's every dog. It's every breed. It's really hard. I think your best bet is to get a dog or cat from a naturally rearing breeder if you're going to do that. Somebody who understands and is feeding mom and grandma have been eating a species appropriate diet and hasn't had their gut destroyed and all of those things. We're going to get to one more question because I've already kept Nicole past time. But really quick, my Schnauzer needs to eat a bit differently and also different skincare. Sorry, I thought that was a question, but it needs to eat a bit differently and also different skincare.
Yeah.
Schnauzers. Yeah. Schnauzers are and it's weird because we're saying it's not because he's a Schnauzer, but also, Schnauzers tend to have, and I think it's like, we can look at the Beagle, for example. The Beagle used to be one of the most resilient breeds out there. It's why they would use them for testing, but now they've destroyed the Beagle. And so now we have all these problems with Beagles, but it's because a lot of stuff that was going on. So Nicole, real quick, where all over the country, where somebody had asked, can I only get this online? But where is small batch sold?
Yeah, I saw that question and I wanted to come back to it. We have grown our roots in independent pet retail. So you're not going to find small batch online. We don't, unfortunately, have infrastructure to do direct delivery. We don't even sell from our own website. So finding an independent pet retailer in your local area that has access to purchase from a good distributor that does some more premium brand options is going to be your go-to. If you're not familiar with where you see small batch on the shelves, go on our website, which is smallbatchpets.com. We've got a store locator option to find the closest geographic potential retail outlet. And we've got a live chat feature on there. Also, our girls that help answer customer inquiries can help guide you as well.
But mostly you're found in like more of the smaller, right? You're not going to find it at PetSmart. You're not going to find it at like any big corporations, right? Yeah.
No.
So it's going to be in a smaller communities, which I love. And it is very helpful to me because it is really hard as a small business. We spend an enormous amount of time trying to educate people. And then some of these companies will use the small retailer to get the word out and spread their company. And then the next thing you know, all of a sudden they're in the big PetSmart and Petco who can buy in mass quantities. And then we get priced out of it and we can't. So I love that small batch really is supporting small companies like that. I think it's important because when you think about it, right, if everybody talks about support small companies, and we do, I think as a nation, we are really trying to support small businesses. But then when those small businesses end up going into big businesses, now we're kind of struggling again and we're right back to square one. So I love that small batch is a small company and supports small companies. And so it's important. And you guys are manufacturing, you're making, like, you're in there. Sometimes you were, Nicole was telling me before this, she was number 7 of the people that work there, right?
Yeah.
Number 7. How many people there are now?
We're just about 20 total.
Yeah.
And that's to handle all of the number crunching and all of the distribution, fulfillment, trucking logistics, production calendars. There's tons that really goes into it. So we're still a really small operation in the landscape of things that does a tremendous amount of work every week to keep food on the shelves. And like you said, we rely on independent pet retailers that care to do the research for the brands they choose to put on their shelves and inside of their freezers, and put the effort into keeping the lights on every day and staffing local community members, having payroll, running freezers, taking delivery of products. There's a lot to be said for keeping our dollars in our local communities. And, that's how we grew, and that's where we know the value is and support.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you read this. She's just little feedback. She says she does look for foods that specifically say this food is for IBD. I don't know if you want to necessarily, if you want to respond to that.
There's a lot of technicals and legalities and what it is you can put on a food label. Yes, it is helpful, I know, sometimes to be able to look specifically for verbiage. In kind of the reverse of that, it can pigeonhole certain products and maybe make it preclusionary for people that would otherwise reach for it.
Yeah.
So just know we cannot always specify or use particular words that might translate to that kind of call out, especially when you start selling things in different states and you have to make,
Yeah.
kind of the most broad utilizations for our consumer community. But I appreciate the feedback. It's definitely something we hope that we can create some more kind of ancillary or supplementary tools that maybe aren't on the package, but on the website or deliverable to our retail partners to give a little bit more assistance in how to reach for specific products that might be most applicable for your needs.
Yeah. I'm kind of surprised that other companies are even able to, or well, haven't been caught yet, we should say, right? Because we know that we can't,
Yeah.
that's a medical term. IBD is a medical term. So other companies are just not getting caught yet. So, or we do have some companies, I know that Hills puts the word prescription on it, and there's been some lawsuits against that too. So it is a really tricky thing. So I can see why Small Batch doesn't want to jump into that. I will tell you from my own personal experience, and I can't tell you how many clients that I see with IBD, and the chicken lightly cooked Small Batch is the one that I use for dogs that I recommend, and I get wonderful feedback on that. So that's just a suggestion. I know it doesn't say it on the bag, but hopefully Nicole was able to explain a little bit of the trickery that goes on with labeling. They won't let us do certain things. They got to be really careful. So please don't be mad at me, all of you, but I am about to just really, really quickly. Somebody put in here that said that they are breeding naturally rearing Labradors. Did anyone see that? I lost it.
Oh,
okay. I gotta find it. So, there it is. Okay, Heidi, please contact me. I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't take the time to do this, but my son has an old lab that he loves dearly, and I need to get him a puppy before the passing of his dog. And I knew I was going to get a naturally reared, raw fed, the whole thing for my son. So please, Heidi, contact me, or I'll try to find this or give me some information, but contact me because I gotta get on that. Probably get on a waiting list with you or something, because I'm not ready right now, but probably in the next year I'm gonna need to do it. So that's just a little side note. Okay, so hopefully Heidi heard me say that. The rest of you guys, thank you so much for your great
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, awesome questions. Awesome helping each other out. That's what I love. I love this community is getting to the point where we're all starting to feel a little bit more comfortable to just say, hey, try this or don't try this or don't do this. So thank you guys all for always being here and then spreading this information out so that we can keep educating. If we don't do this, we are never going to change some of the old mindsets that we really need to change. If we are all collectively going to help these animals, we need to change some mindsets here. Nicole, you're amazing. And Mackie's story is amazing.
Thank you. He is, like we started with, he is the proof in the pudding and my testimonial to what we can do for an animal that's already got stuff that we're navigating and, maximize their lifespan and allow them to live the best way possible for as many years as he wants to be here.
Yeah. You did such a fabulous job with him. I thank
Thank
you
you.
for trusting me with him because I know it's very hard, right? Like
Yes.
you just walk into a grooming shop and you hand over your child and you have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. And I try to be as transparent as I can with that and let people know what we're doing. But thank you for trusting me and thank
Of
you for
course.
letting me share that story because it really, when I see dogs that, and I didn't know his backstory, I just knew that, wow, here's a lab that is not overweight, who doesn't have ear infections. And I knew who you were. So I was like, she's actually feeding him the food that she says. You couldn't be feeding him a kibble and have him look like that. It just
Right.
doesn't happen. So I just, thank you. Thanks for sharing him with me. One more question
Absolutely.
about him. Does he
Yeah.
always sit like that?
He does. He is very proper. He
He's so
has his little
clever.
front arms crossed.
Oh my
He
gosh,
always has. It's his signature move.
oh my gosh, you guys, I put a tie on him. He has a little Christmas tie. And then I want to take a picture of him and he just crossed both his hands. And then we laid the tie out over him. I'm like, oh my gosh, he was really a lot of fun. And I just appreciate so much all your knowledge, willing to share with everybody so freely. It makes a
Absolutely.
huge difference. Yeah. Yeah. So it's been great. And behind the scenes is Lori. She is always with me typing in because I would never be able to do it. I get too distracted. So
you,
Lori,
Lauren.
thank you so much. I think we have everything there for you guys if you need to. This stays on the Spaw's Facebook page, so you can always reference it if you need to. But anyway, I am going to let you go for the night. Nicole, thank you again, and I will see you soon.
Thank you all. It was a pleasure.
All right. Take care, Nicole.
Bye-bye.